Kip, how did you find carnivore?
Hey, Dave, it's good to see you again. I'll just get right to it. In 2018, I was diagnosed with a 100% blockage in my left anterior descending artery and a 70% blockage in my right artery. And I was told that I needed triple bypass surgery immediately. Was very surprised at the time, though. In hindsight, I shouldn't have been surprised at all. Um, I had spent my whole life. I was 50 at the time, and I had spent my whole life eating whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, in the amount that I wanted. And I had a problem. I had a problem with sugar and carb addiction. I love listening to the folks that you talk to because it doesn't matter whether they're in the United States or Europe or Asia or Norway, Finland, also, it doesn't matter. We all, in whatever part of the world we grow up in, if we have access to that kind of food, it's addictive, right? It's addictive. And over time, it really does some serious damage. I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate. I just happened to be out running one day. My oldest daughter and I were working out in our garage, and I ran up to the stop sign as part of a circuit training, and I got a really strange pain under my left collarbone, and it felt like someone was really clamping down on my left bicep. This should have been like a an immediate alert that there's a problem, okay, with your blood flow, but it wasn't. I ignored it because, Dave, I was in great shape as a 50-year-old dude, and was in great shape. And at the time, my diet was still not very good. The only adjustment I had really made at that time was my portions. My portions. I was eating 3 times a day, in small portions. Um, I knew sugar was a problem, but I did not know that carbohydrates in whatever form, starches in whatever form, is sugar, right? Um, and so, anyway, um, in 2018, on September 7th, it was a Friday, I was diagnosed. Um, I had a catheter done. The cardiologist told me, I can't stent this. You need surgery. So they transported me to a hospital in Atlanta. And Monday morning at 8:30 on September 10th, 2018, um, I had a triple bypass surgery. Um, I was very scared, but I was at peace. Um, my wife was with me. She's my best friend. She was with me. And so the surgery went fine. It went very well. I woke up in the ICU, intubated. That's the first time that I'd ever been intubated, and that was awful. That was awful. I just, it hurt, and I felt like I was choking, and it was awful. So, um, was very, very depressed for several weeks, but was grateful that I had no heart attack. I didn't have a heart attack. I was one of those very fortunate people who has 100% blockage, and it's discovered before a heart attack, and it was bypassed. So my heart is in great shape, still is to this day, and was very grateful to the Lord for that. I know that it was His doing. I've seen Him work in every step all along, and so has my wife. So I knew that I had a problem with my diet, but like many people, I believed I could outrun a diet or be in such great physical shape that it doesn't matter what you eat. And that we know that's not true. We know that's not true, but that's what that's the way I was living my life. And it had some very serious consequences. Um, so I go through recovery, um, but I feel damaged. Um, they take those veins out of your legs and they open your chest up, which is, there's no way to um, separate your sternum without sawing it in half. And so I knew these things had been done to me. And though I was grateful to be alive, I felt damaged and I had a hard time getting over that. And I didn't think I could ever live a normal life again. But I soon found out that that's not true. Um, it's been, it's been almost what, 7 years later, and I still have this numb feeling in my chest on this side, which has been there since day one. Um, and I was afraid it wouldn't go away at the time. And that bothered me. That was part of feeling damaged, but it's still there and it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't bother me at all. And so back in the early 2000s, I had tried to give up sugar, but again, I back then I didn't know that carbohydrates and starches were a part of that as well. But I did know about grains, um, potatoes. I knew nothing about seed oils. Okay, I believe seed oils can do a lot of damage as well, especially partnered with excessive carbohydrates. I didn't know about that, and I lost a lot of weight in the early 2000s. But eventually, I went back to and I really for a couple of years I kept up with it, but eventually I went back to the old diet. So um, I was determined after my surgery to immerse myself research, into research and reading, where that meant reading. Of course, fortunately for me, it just meant YouTube, right? And I love YouTube. It's amazing, right? Um, but anyway, I did that, and in you'll find this extremely ironic. For the first year, after my surgery, out of ignorance, I eliminated meat, not 100%, but close to it. Right? I eliminated meat, and I was eating, plant based, and I felt okay. But I was still eating 3 meals a day. And then um, March of 2020, all right, the world went crazy, right? So it's been about a year and a half since my surgery, and the world goes crazy. The world shuts down, and you know, many of us were confined to our homes, and/or I went to work every day. I work in a public school system, and but I went to work every day, literally into an empty school. The kids were sent home, and they were doing everything online. And I'm a school resource officer, so I went into an empty school. So I had a lot of time to research, and so I didn't trust from the quote unquote experts what we were hearing about what was going on, and that led me in because of the downtime. I I would watch videos regarding this, and the first person that that came across YouTube was Ivor Cummins. I know you know who he is. Ivor doesn't put out a whole lot of content about nutrition um, recently, but back then he there was quite a bit. There was quite a bit, and Ivor is he reminds me kind of myself in that he's a straight shooter. He's a straight shooter. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. He just tells you the truth. He's a biomechanical engineer, so he's a problem solver, and he won't stop until he finds out the truth. So really got to know him very well through the YouTube platform. And I have a pretty good radar for bullcrap, and I trusted Ivor. I trusted Ivor. So the algorithm just kept feeding me Ivor stuff. So for the first time in my life, in 2020, I heard about a low carb diet, a ketogenic diet. I had never, at this point, I'm almost 52. I had never heard the term ketogenic. I didn't know what ketosis was. Had never heard of it. Ivor co-wrote a book on the ketogenic diet with a doctor from Colorado. I believe it's Dr. Jeffrey Gerber. I bought the book. And I was still, even though I thought I was doing the right thing from a nutrition standpoint, my goal was to never, ever have any more arteries or atherosclerosis, plaque in my arteries. I never wanted to deal with that again. It's unfortunate that it took that kind of event to wake me up, but it was. It was the ultimate wake-up call, and I acted upon it. And have been ever since. But so at the same time that I discovered Ivor, I believe it was Dr. Jason Fung who really was talking the intermittent fasting. So December 1st, 2020, I began a ketogenic diet, and at the same day, I married it with the intermittent fasting. I started off in an eating window, a feeding window. My plan was to do 2 meals a day in a 6-hour window. I thought that'll sustain me. I can do that. And so I started eating a lot of low carb, low starchy vegetables, but I was eating plenty of meat. And it worked right away. I never had the transition or the keto flu that some experience. I never had that. And within 2 weeks, I felt better. My energy it used to be a major task getting me out of bed in the morning. And it has been that way my whole life, literally my whole life. And within a week or two, I'm waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm ready to roll. And what I've learned is that sustaining this way of eating over time, some people see immediate benefits, and I did too. And I know that many of the people you speak with, they do as well. But there are some really, really important, major, you could claim miraculous things that happen if you can sustain this over time and not. So weight loss was not on my radar at the time. In late 2020, when I started the ketogenic diet, I was 175 and very fit when I had my surgery. December 1st, 2020, I'm 160 pounds. I had returned to the gym. And so I felt great, looked great. So weight loss wasn't an issue for me, but learning so much from Ivor. And of course, it wasn't long after getting to know Ivor and listening to him and the science of it, the biology of it, that the algorithm popped up Dr. Ken Berry. Okay. And then I was off. I was off. That's really all I needed to be educated was Dr. Funk, Dr. Berry, Ira Cummins. Of course, I've met a lot of other wonderful people and have learned things from them as well, including yourself. Um, there's a young man, I believe. Are you Welsh? Or is that your
I'm Scottish.
Scottish? Okay,
Mm.
so I wasn't sure, but there's an English um, young man, and he goes by Kent Carnivore. I can't recall what his name is. That's not his name, but
Lee, yeah.
Lee. That's right. That's right. I discovered him just a year or two ago. I love his videos because he's straightforward, and he's been through some really rough health issues, and I can't imagine going through what he went through, having his part of his GI tract removed, and if you're familiar with him, you know what he's gone through. So that, and so I'm going to give all these people credit because I couldn't have done any of this without all of these people. But Ken Berry, Ivor, yourself, Dr. Fung, Dr. Sean Baker, I kind of found out early on, but I try to focus more on so Dr. Berry is a fellow Southerner. Okay, he grew up in Tennessee. I grew up in Georgia. We're about the same age, and so we grew up in the same era of the Southern culture, and I kind of gravitate to him. But there's many other wonderful, wonderful people that I really admire and respect who helped me develop this. Bella, the steak and butter gal, she's great. Laura Spath is great. Kelly Hogan is wonderful, and I'm constantly, even to this day, almost 7 years later, I never stop looking. I never stop looking. I need to be reminded. Well, I'm not reminded, but it inspires and it makes me feel good. I watch all of your stuff. Every person you talk to, Dave, I watch them because I'm inspired. I'm inspired, and I'm amazed about how similar everyone's story is, and there's still this argument, on YouTube and other places about the science or about the long term, benefits of ketosis and just meat, and it's ridiculous. It's
The the
ridiculous.
the long-term argument always makes me laugh because we know what the long-term results are of eating a plant-based diet because they're all in hospital, right?
Right. Well, and I had no idea. I mean, I ate a year and a half after my surgery. I ate what was not really a vegetarian diet, but it certainly wasn't vegan. I was never going that route. That's crazy, in my opinion. Um, but I was close to vegetarian, and I felt okay. But discovering, all these wonderful people, you're. I'm sorry, you're not going to get the nutrients you need. You're not. You're not. And Dave, I don't think we were ever intended to eat 3 meals a day. I think that's crazy. I think that's crazy, especially if like I know Michaela Peterson. I know she eats 3 meals a day, but all she's eating is meat. That's it. That's it. And so you have to ask the question. I don't know how many people you've interviewed, but
1,200.
okay. So that's 1,200 people that we know about. And at some point, because there's some people who say, well, what's the science? What's the science? What's the science? And I understand that, but the science is there if you're willing to open your eyes and see the truth. But at some point, though, 1,200 anecdotes, people who have never ever met from all over the globe and are saying the same things. You dismiss that outright?
And that's the thing. They're all saying the same thing. Like, none of those 1,200 people are coming on saying, I thought it was going to work for me, but my diabetes got worse. There's not one person saying that.
Right, right. So, and so December 1st, 2020, I start a ketogenic diet. I start an 18-6 intermittent fasting, and just like I said, there was no problem for me. I mean, I immediately took to it like a fish to water, and I was happy. Happy. I felt great. I had no issue. I do HIIT training. I'll be 57 next month. I don't have any issues, and I'm not boasting. I'm just saying it's a fact. I'm getting the fuel I need to fuel those workouts. I don't struggle. I don't struggle. But anyway, so I'm doing the ketogenic diet. I'm eating 2 meals a day within a 6-hour window. I did that for several months, and I thought I can. I really didn't have a plan. Okay, I just knew I wanted to eat well for the rest of my life. So I didn't set deadlines. I didn't set goals, with arbitrary dates or whatever. I just went with the flow, so to speak. So I thought, okay, let's do 2 meals within 5 hours. No problem. And then did that for several months. Said, let's do 2 meals within 4 hours. Did it for several months. No problem. No problem. And then I thought, okay, let's eat as much nutrient dense, low carb food as I want to within a 2 or 3 hour window. And let's see what happens. And I did it, and nothing changed. And I alluded earlier to the fact of the long-term benefits, how things may not change immediately. And there were a couple of things major with me that did, and it took a while. It took a while, but these were big. These were huge, Dave. One was my sleep and my sleep quality. I had not slept well my entire adult life. In my early 20s, my diet couldn't have been worse. Couldn't have been worse. Not only was I eating garbage, I was eating it several times a day. And I slept terrible. And I had debilitating migraines. So I started taking medication. I hadn't learned in my 20s that it might help in some cases, but in my opinion, long term, no side effects were ever explained to me ever. Anyway, I took migraine meds that were also antidepressants for 25 years, and always hated the fact that I was a young man and was dependent on meds, but that's what I did. So struggled with migraine, struggled with anxiety, panic attacks, and depression. Most of my adult life, I slept terrible every single night. I would have very vivid dreams every single night. And I could tell you those dreams. I could tell you details about those dreams. So probably, I don't know, 2015, I was probably 190, 195 pounds. I was a roly-poly. And I just got sick of it. And I knew that the medication had a lot to do with it. So, and I always wanted to get off of them. As I got older, my migraines improved. Although my sleep, depression, anxiety did not. But anyway, I got off the meds. I weaned myself off the meds. I immediately went from 195, 190 to 180. And I changed nothing. I'm still eating garbage. But those meds, they kept the weight on. So anyway, I'm not sure how long it was. I did the keto thing for 2 or 3 years, and I told you I just would try things. I would just experiment along the way to see if I could do it, if it was an issue. And so I got down into that 2 or 3 hour window every day, and was eating meat and eggs and a little dairy, but I was also eating the plants as well. A lot of spinach. I ate a lot of spinach when I was a kid. We watched. You ever heard of the American cartoon Popeye?
Oh
I
yeah, I
don't know if
watched
you.
that as a kid. Yeah.
Okay, you did too. Okay, so and that's all he ate, right? That's all he ate. So anyway, I never had any issues. That never caused any issues with me. I know that it does cause issues with a lot of people, the oxalates and whatnot. So anyway, I reach a point, and it's probably been at least 2 years ago, maybe longer than that, maybe 3.5 years ago. Of course, I'd been watching. I was on the YouTube all the time, and in the carnivore space. And I told my wife, I was like, I'm gonna give that a try. I'm gonna give that a try. I've always loved meat. I've always loved eggs. I've always loved butter. And again, Dave, I took to it like fish to water. I took to it like fish to water. It improved because I'm convinced that the carnivore. So my sleep, I told you about my trouble sleeping. It was gradual, didn't happen overnight, but over time, Dave, my sleep. I'm sleeping through the night. I'm sleeping 8 hours. I'm sleeping restfully. I wake up ready for the day. Whatever the day has in store for me, I'm ready for it because I've recharged. And of course, I learned about autophagy. I learned about cleaning up all those cells through that process. Um, and of course, I don't go to the doctor anymore. But those first few years I did, and I was curious, especially after eating the low carb and then the carnivore, about my blood work and um, and about the blood tests and about the tests that we should be getting that your regular GP is not. They're gonna. I requested a fasting insulin one time for a general practitioner, and he belittled me, Dave. He's like, "Why do you want that?" I was like, "Because I want to know if I'm insulin sensitive." He's like, and he actually said this with a straight face. He said, "Well, I'm not going to approve a test based on just something on the internet. You need to have some actual science behind it." And anyway, he belittled me, and I never saw him again. So, um, but I mean, all my numbers are. So I am a bit of a lean mass hyper responder, but it's not an issue for me. It's not an issue for me. My cholesterol 2 years ago was just my LDL was 194. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. My HDL and my triglycerides the ratio was 1 to 1. My triglycerides were super low. They were the same as my HDL. And I think it was 48. I think they were both 48. So I'm trying to get that HDL up, and I'm confident. But that was 2 years ago, and I haven't had my blood tested since because I'm not. I'm my curiosity hasn't got the best of me to this
And you're
point because
feeling good, right?
I'm feeling Dave. I mean, for 5 years, for 5 years, I have felt great. Felt great. I had I've had um, the COVID twice, and I had symptoms for about 3 days. The first time I was the only thing that persisted for a couple of weeks was fatigue. That's it. That's it. The second time I had it, I was fatigued for about a week, but the symptoms that I had my first time around, I didn't even have those. It was basically just fatigue. So I'm feeling great. And again, I work with young people, um, and so it's important for me to be physically fit. Um, and I feel great. And my life could not be more simpler, Dave. I mean, my wife and I, it took my wife a little while to get on board with the carnivore. She was fine with the low carb and the keto. And she still eats a few plants here and there, but it's low carb plants and no starchy plants, but not much. But not much. So she was reluctant, but she's on board now too. And I mean, we eat steak and burger patties and eggs and real cheese. I've stopped drinking milk, which I loved. Man, as a kid growing up in the South, I could guzzle me some milk, but I've stopped drinking milk just because of the lactose. Um, and like I said, so about 3 months ago, I had surgery on my shoulder, and it wasn't a shoulder replacement, but it was a pretty major surgery. And as I said, I'm not a spring chicken, but I was amazed at uh, so as an athlete, as a kid, and even as a older guy, still participating in athletics. I'd had rehab and stuff, and it was kind of tough. But this time, I mean, my physical therapy has been great. I actually enjoyed it. And I don't feel for what I had done to my shoulder. I'm 3 months out, and I'm still not, where I need to be in terms of healing. Um, the first, I think it was the second week after my surgery. I'd never done this before. I did a 4-day fast. And just drank electrolytes and water for 4 days. I really was trying to turbocharge my healing to get rid of that inflammation in my shoulder from the surgery. And I was able to do that. And I'm convinced that the carnivore, the fasting, even the intermittent fasting, I'm still eating in a 2-3 hour window every day.
So, and that 2-3 hour window, that's just like steak and eggs and done.
So my staple is burger patties. Okay. And I know, like, it's best to eat grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And, I have those here at the house. But, I mean, Dave, if something happens and I don't, for whatever reason, I haven't had prep time to bring my food to work with me, and I do most days, but I'll go to the fast food places and get their burger patties. And it's fine. It's fine. I don't shy away from that. Because that's all I'm getting. That's all I'm getting. I do occasionally will eat their cheese, which I know is no good. But in a lot of cases, I'll bring my own real good, clean cheese, and I'll just heat it up a little bit, melt it on the burger patty. I make my own condiments. I make my own burger sauce, and I make it out of sour cream and mayonnaise made with avocado oil and some ketchup has no sugar or carbs in it, and it's great. It's great. I use quality salt. I salt everything I eat, Dave. I salt everything I eat just to taste. That's all. I don't like put a ton of on there, but I salt everything to taste, everything to eat. I cook my scrambled eggs in real grass-fed butter, which is delicious. And for whatever reason, when I fry my eggs, I like to cook those in beef tallow. And it's delicious. It's delicious. And this is what people who want. So I don't expect people to try carnivore right off the bat. I've been trying to influence my friends and family, but I don't start. I say just go low carb, and then try carnivore, whatever. and I mean, all my friends and family has seen what it's done for me and for my wife, and but most people won't do it. Um, I have two really good close friends who are a little bit older than me, just a few years older than me, and we play golf a lot. We vacation. We go to trips with our wives. They're two of my closest friends, and one of them, he ate the same crappy diet that I did for 5 decades, except he did it for 6. And about a year ago, he got a coronary calcium score that scared the crap out of him. And even though I had not recently, I hadn't warned him or talked to him about his diet, because you don't, you're going to turn people off if you nag them, or at least that's what I found. They're either going to do it or they're not. You tell them what you know, and he saw what I went through with my bypass. He saw the transformation. He saw me change my way of eating, because we spend a lot of time together. We do a lot of eating together. Um, but anyway, the coronary calcium score scared the crap out of him, and he's now gone to a pretty decent ketogenic diet. He's never going to go carnivore. All right, well, I'll never say never. Maybe he will. Maybe he will, because I had no plans to do it. I just tried it as kind of an experiment to see what would happen. And I mean, I'll never look back. I'll never look back, because people. This is what people don't understand. It changes your physiology. It changes your taste. And so it's got nothing to do with willpower. Nothing. If there's anyone within the sound of my voice, you're worried about your willpower. You're worried about falling off the wagon and yo-yo dieting. If you do ketogenic, and I would say even more so if you do carnivore, you won't want to do those things. Your body will tell you, I don't want that. I don't want that. It changes your physiology.
Mm.
And very occasionally, my wife and I will indulge in some ice cream or something, and it's okay. It's okay, but I can live without it. I don't miss it. And people are not going to understand what a major thing that is. But if you knew me, I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm a straight shooter. Previous to my bypass, if there was ice cream in the freezer, I could not pass it by. If there were like Eskimo pies or Nutty Buddies, I had to eat 2 or 3 of them. I had to. It was just like a drug addiction.
Yeah. It's pretty severe, right? And most of us don't realize how addicted we are.
And most of us don't see it as a problem. Okay, I believe, looking back now, it's actually, so I'm a Christian, and for the Christian, it's a spiritual problem. It's a spiritual problem. Okay, Galatians 5:22 tells us what the fruit of the Spirit is for the Christian: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and the last one, self-control. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So the fact that I can't get a handle on this, I can't have the self-control to not eat 2 or 3 ice creams instead of just it's not only a physical problem, it's a spiritual problem. And carnivore, and I know the Lord was behind this, because there's no way, if you'd asked me 6, 7 years ago that I'm going to be a carnivore, I'd have told you, even though I loved meat, right? I love meat. I love eggs. I love butter. I think this is a barrier. People can't imagine a life without variety, right? Variety or a choice. Or it feel like, oh, that's too restrictive. That's too restrictive. I could never do that. I mean, I thought the same things, but I mean, I could not be happier, Dave. I could not be happier.
I
Um,
I think what you're touching on is a thing that I find is one of the key obstacles that people have when they're thinking about going carnivore is like they think it's all about willpower, as you say, but you don't need willpower because once
you
you're
sure
eating,
don't.
well, you need willpower for the first couple of weeks, maybe, but outside of that, um, this is why it feels like we're eating the way our bodies were intended to eat because you don't need that willpower anymore.
Yeah, yeah, you know, I'm not interested in debating a vegan. If a person wants to eat vegan, knock yourself out. But you're not going to. Your body is not going to get what it needs. And maybe you eat it for 50 years, and maybe you won't have any major chronic illnesses, but you're still not going to live the life you were intended to live. I believe that with all my heart. Um, you know, some people. I know Bella really struggled with the oxalates in the plants, and I know she was a vegan, and uh, but like the plants didn't bother me, but it just I know what I know now. I can't. I don't want it. I don't want it. Not because it makes me feel poorly. I just know that, and this is a big thing I learned from Dr. Berry was the bioavailability. I'd never heard that term, never thought about it. We certainly are not going to be taught by the healthcare system about bioavailability, but man, you're the absorption and the nutrients, vitamins, minerals, all that stuff. Man, you know, it's going to be great. It's going to be great, and there's not going to be any wasted. I mean, you take a nice ribeye steak, Dave, a fatty ribeye steak, and we do that a couple days a week. You, I mean, your body absorbs it. Your body absorbs it so much more. I mean, I'm not going to the bathroom nearly as frequently as I was eating garbage because my body is absorbing so much of it. And you know, when I do go to the bathroom now, it's not an issue. There's you know, it's effortless. You know, without getting too graphic, it's not an issue. It's not an issue.
Yeah.
And I mean everything we have been taught, everything we have been taught for the past 50 years about nutrition is so wrong. It's so wrong. It's
Yeah.
it
And it only benefits the food companies and the healthcare industry.
that's it. That's it. And I mean, the studies that show otherwise, you got to look at who funds those studies. And in my experience, now I don't understand studies. That's why I like Ivor and Dr. Berry. They can explain it to a knucklehead like me in plain English. And look at those studies that contradict what you and I believe now. They're always funded by pharmaceutical companies. Always, always. Or someone who has a financial interest in the outcome. So, um, so anyway, that's kind of my journey to carnivore, and I just, like I said, I'm so happy, um, and so my sleep over time, and fairly quickly, Dave. I would say within 6 months of even doing the low carb stuff, my depression and anxiety gone, gone, disappeared. I'd no longer, you know, other than the normal life events that may make us blue or sad, that's normal. That's perfectly normal. Uh, but my depression, I used to have just terrible panic attacks. I haven't had one in several years. Several years. Um, now, and like I said, the migraines, the depression, the anxiety, the heartburn with eating that garbage. I haven't had that in years, and um, and my sleep, and my sleep
Mm.
is almost every night, quality sleep. Some nights better than others, but quality sleep, and it's so nice to wake up refreshed. And in my late 30s, I developed a condition called proctalgia fugax, and uh, to put it really simply, it's a muscle spasm in the area of the rectal cavity. And Dave, I can't describe to you how bad it hurts. It takes your breath away. Takes your breath away. And I've been, like I said, I've been an athlete all my life. Um, and I've always had a high tolerance for pain, but these things would wake me up in the middle of the night. Almost always in the middle of the night. And I feel them coming on, and it comes on kind of gradually, and it feels like you have to go to the bathroom, but you don't. You don't. It's just a spasm uh, down there, and most of the time the pain would affect my man part as well. And for 45 minutes to an hour, Dave, in the middle of the night, I would have to get up and just pace around my house. I was There was nowhere to go to get away from it. That's how painful it was. And after being on carnivore for about a year and a half, um, they they didn't completely stop. All right, I'm confident though that eventually they will, but they became much more infrequent. They became much more infrequent, and now they're lasting like 5 or 10 minutes. 5 or 10 minutes, and they're not, like I said, it's not, the pain is not near as bad. It does. I would literally, in the past, when these things came on, I would end up laying in the floor in the fetal position, just praying for some relief, praying for the Lord to give me some relief. It was awful. And I've been to a doctor, and they have no idea what causes it. I've had colonoscopies. They show nothing. Um,
And
but it's probably
there's
been,
nothing they could ever give you as like medication for relief or anything like that.
yeah, so that may be the one thing that I had been diagnosed with that they didn't want me to take medication for, believe it or not, because nothing is known about it. Nothing is known about it, and or what causes it. And the doctor that I saw in my late 30s, he said it was stress related, which I had a lot of stress, but most of that was because of the garbage I was eating. And I mean that is nothing short. And again, I'm not embellishing. That is nothing short of miraculous. Um, they used to be every other month, or maybe a little bit more frequent than that, till now maybe just 2 or 3 times a year. And like I said, it's 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm not. It doesn't. I told you the pain wasn't near as bad. I'm not forced to get out of bed even. I can just tolerate it 5 or 10 minutes, and then I go back to sleep. It is nothing short of miraculous. And you can't tell me that it has nothing to do with being a carnivore. I know it. I know it does. I know it does. So I've been taking, you know, I've had a bypass almost 7 years ago. So naturally, my cardiologist, he's a traditionally trained cardiologist, says you're going to take a statin for the rest of your life and a baby aspirin. And at the time, I thought, man, that's kind of odd, because when I had my bypass, my LDL was like 120 or something. It wasn't, you know. And so I took the statin and the aspirin for, I guess, about a year. But then when I started learning and being educated about the truth, of biology and these studies. And I remember the last conversation. He belittled me. He worked for the same company that the GP that I mentioned earlier, who belittled me about the fasting insulin. He belittled me too. He wanted to argue with me, and I was and so and this is kind of one of the things that is disappointing to me, Dave. You have a lot of adults, grown up men and women all over the world who will like submit to this kind of bully authority that some doctors try to have over their patients. And that's crazy. That's crazy. If we did not learn anything about what went on in 2020 and 2021 and that whole arrangement, we need to learn that we need to have a healthy dose of skepticism when it comes to healthcare. And they have earned it. They have earned it. I know I'm not saying that all doctors are bad or have some sort of nefarious motive, but it's either a nefarious motive or it's just terrible ignorance. Okay, terrible ignorance. I mean, that's what
I,
make doctors.
Sometimes I think it's almost willful ignorance. It's like it's just easier to ignore what's going on and just put my head down and pay my mortgage for a lot of doctors.
Right. And I mean, look, they've gone to medical school. It was expensive. I don't have a problem with people making money. I never have. But when that's your incentive, I mean, when I was a little kid, we went to the doctor so we would get well. And at some point in the 80s, 90s perhaps, that all changed. That all changed. I remember this was early mid 90s. Excuse me. My migraines were terrible. They were causing me to miss work, causing anxiety because of missing work, among other things, and they were very painful. I went to see 3 neurologists. Nobody's interested. And I mean, I had one doctor. I'll never forget it. He just kept talking about how the medications would help with the frequency. What's the words he used? He used the words how they'd be frequent and less painful. And neither one was true. I took those medications for 25 years. Now my migraines stopped in my early mid 40s, but I had another physician in my 20s tell me that when you get older and you go through male menopause, I don't know what she meant by that. She said your headaches will get much better. And that's what happened. It had nothing to do with those medications. In fact, those medications had everything to do, researching it years later, the side effects of those medications, it really harmed my sleep. And it really affected the dream centers in our brain. And of course now, you know, LDL's not an issue. It's not an issue, but it still is for so many people. And Dave, you don't have to spend 1,000 hours to research this stuff and find it out. You can just get on YouTube and look, we all have to have discernment and judgment, right? We have to listen to information and decide for ourselves if it's true or not. But it's not difficult. It's not difficult.
It requires you just to want to ask questions and actually kind of look at what's happening when you make decisions about what you're going to eat or how you feel, you know.
Right. And if all anyone ever did who's struggling with any sort of chronic condition or pain or malady or heck, even if you feel great and you're younger and you just want to prevent that stuff, if they just listen to like a dozen of the people you interview, and I mean, you would know enough. You would know enough, and it's not going to look the same. Like, not everybody goes carnivore and eats in a 2 or 3 hour window all the time. I know most people probably don't do that, but it can be done, and it wasn't done against my will. It was something that I tried, and like I said, I sound like a broken record, but I feel great. I
Yeah.
feel great, and
So there's at this stage there's no way you'd go back.
I don't want to. My body doesn't want to. And by the way, those statins, and I stopped taking those. I'm taking no medication. I mean, I had, as a 21-year-old, as a young, and I was in great shape, man. I was very active and athletic. I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and went through chemo for 6 months, and haven't had any additional problems from that. So I've got a history of cancer. I've got a history of heart disease, more recent. I've got a history of anxiety, of depression, of proctalgia. I suspect, Dave, that prior to my bypass, I was either undiagnosed type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic at the very best. I have no doubt. No one ever. So my A1C would always be either quote unquote normal or close to it, and it was just like no doctor was ever concerned with it. But they didn't measure my insulin. They only measured the glucose. And you got to get a full picture. You got to get a full picture. You need an HSCRP test. You need a fasting insulin. You need to, that'll give you a more full picture. There's nothing wrong with an HbA1c, but it shouldn't be the end all be all, because mine was quote unquote normal, but I mean, I had 100% blockage in the left anterior descending artery, and I was living on borrowed time. I have no
Yeah.
doubt about it. And I take nothing now. I take nothing, and like I said, I'll be 57 next month, and I haven't been in the gym because of my shoulder, and so I won't get back into the gym until for another month or two. I'm still doing some physical therapy here at my home, um, and that type of thing. But when I go back, I know I'm going to be able to hit it. Now, I know that I'm not going to be in great shape like I was prior to my shoulder surgery, but it won't take me long, Dave. And again, I'm not boasting. My body is fueled with what it needs for high intensity training, for longevity. Uh, Somebody else I want to mention that I discovered a couple years ago was Professor Ben Bickman from Brigham Young out in Utah. Man, he's when it comes to the insulin, he's I listen to him. I listen to him because he's on board, and I know him and Dr. Barry have done a couple of joint podcasts together, and I've enjoyed those so much, and I learned so much. And the question that I get the most from people that I discuss this with is like, because burger patties, like I said, are my staple, and that's what I eat most of. And they say, "Well, don't you get tired of it?" And I'm like, "No, no." Now, if I was eating burger patties 3 times a day, I would maybe. I don't know, but I don't, because I don't want to eat 3 times a day. I don't want. I eat till I am comfortably stuffed, and it's full of saturated fat and protein, and it's wonderful. And it's wonderful. And I salt it to taste, and it's wonderful.
Nice. Um, so if you were giving someone advice about starting carnivore, based on your experience, what advice or tips would you give them?
Well, I would try to get them to consider an intermittent fasting schedule of 16/8. Okay, of 16/8. Because look, you can eat a lot of satisfying food in 8 hours, right? That really should be no one, even if you eat garbage, you could eat in an 8 hour window. Now you'd struggle because of the addiction, okay, the addiction to the carbs. Uh, but that's where I'd start. Try to make it as palatable to them as possible. And just tell them, I would even go so far as to tell them within that 8 hour window, eat as much as you want of healthy animal products. No grains, no plants, no seed oils. I mean, it's so simple, Dave, but it's magical, is it not? Is it not?
Yeah, it's just they need to get over that couple of week hump, and then after that, it's smooth sailing.
Yeah, yeah. And look, I know that I'm a selfish person. I struggle with being selfish, and I like to think that I'm the master of my ship in all things. And before I even started low carb, I did not want to give up my 3 meals a day, but it was gluttonous. It was gluttonous. I know that I knew 25 years ago that if you eat biscuits every single day, not cookies like where y'all come from, I'm talking about actually in the South, you grew up with these big biscuits, right? And then many times it's got gravy on it, and it tastes wonderful, but man, you're gonna not only are you gonna pack on the weight, but you just eventually you're gonna have a problem. Um, I'm working on my children and my in-law children. They they're in that they don't want to. My girls don't want to give up the carbohydrates because they've been. My oldest daughter, who's precious, she's a big CrossFitter, and the people she listens to says you got to have carbs. You and I both know that that's not true. There's no essential carb. I don't care if you're lifting heavy, which I'm not a big fan of lifting heavy, but I do like my HIIT training. I do like my HIIT training, and it's not true. And I think my middle daughter, I think she just enjoys. Uh, there's a there's a fast food chicken place here in the United States called Chick-fil-A. Wonderful company, wonderful company. Their business model it's awesome, but their food is filled with chemicals. Filled with everything is heavy carbs. They even offer like a side of kale, Dave, and it has carbohydrates in it because of the added stuff. And it just, if you know you're putting those chemicals in your body, for most people, until there are consequences, that's the problem with us as humans, even from Adam and Eve. We need, unfortunately, most of us need an incentive to do something that we think is going to be like so hard and so out of reach. But you and I and the 1,200 people you've talked to, we know it's not. We know it's not. And I don't know those people, but I suspect that those people are just regular, normal, down to earth people living their lives, their families, going to work. I mean, I'm nothing special. Nothing special. There's nothing special about me. It just, I was motivated by a healthcare event. The bypass. That gave me the incentive, and it shouldn't have taken that much, Dave. And I'm ashamed to say that. I knew that my diet wasn't good, and I knew I had these little chronic conditions, but I just wasn't willing to give it up. And unfortunately, that's what it took to get my attention. And if, anyone who's listening to this, don't let it come to that. Don't let it come to that. I'm so fortunate. Number one, I'm fortunate that I didn't have a heart attack and I didn't drop dead of a heart attack. Number two, here almost 7 years later, I have no restriction physically. I go to the gym and I can keep up with the young bucks at the gym. Now, are they faster? Are they stronger than me? Well, sure, of course they are, but they're not going to outwork me. They're not going to outwork me because I've got the fuel. I'm being fueled properly, and
Nice.
it's just been it's wonderful, I'm going to keep on. Real quickly, I'll mention. So my wife has 3 siblings, one older brother, and he lives in Tennessee. And he was just wanting to lose weight a few years ago, and he's tall and big dude, and he just wanted to lose weight. So and I'm not sure, he may have told me, but I can't recall whether he started doing carnivore. He started doing carnivore, so, and here 3 or 4 years later, he's still doing it. He's still doing it, and his son is the same age as my kids, as his cousins, and his son started doing it I'm guessing about a year ago. And Dave, I wish I had some before and after pictures of this kid. I call him a kid. He's at least 30, but that's a kid to me. That's the age of my kids. But my nephew, his transformation is unbelievable. I mean, he went to this hardworking, good old boy, good kid, but man, he was big. He was big. He was obese, and I mean, you know, it's inevitable. The chronic health problems are going to be inevitable if you do it long enough. But he saw his dad. He saw his dad do it, and he thought he'd try it. And here we are, probably a year later. This kid is jacked. I mean, he's jacked. He's ripped. He's just muscles and abs, and just looks great. Looks tremendous. Looks tremendous.
That's
And
fantastic.
it ain't rocket science, as
Mm,
they say. You know.
yeah. So, Kip, if people want to reach out to you, do you have any way of getting in contact?
Yeah. So, Dave, you have my email, and you feel free to share my email. I'd love to. I love talking about this stuff. I could talk about it all day. My friends and my family and my friends, my people I go to church with, they get sick of me. They get sick of me talking about it. But you just can't. It truly is magical and doable, and the benefits are just unbelievable. And it's disappointing when someone won't even consider it. But again, I don't lose any sleep about that. Grown adults have to make these decisions for themselves. With my kids, my son is my baby. Uh, he's doing it, not the same form that I do, but he's definitely all in on low carb and somewhat carnivore, and he's doing great. He's doing great. My son actually was diagnosed with leukemia when he was 4 years old, and that was about a 6.5 year battle, and he had to have a bone marrow transplant, and it was awful. I don't wish that on anybody, but he's pushing 30 now and doing great and doing great. He looks great. And I love it when I get texts from him asking me, wanting to be counseled about this stuff, whether it's, the diet or the blood work and what kind of tests he needs to request from his doctor and stuff. I love it. I love it. And he's bought into it. He's all in. And I know he's going to reap some benefits from it. And, and I'm not going to nag my girls, but I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up on them. Unfortunately, it's probably going to take some, you know, some of those chronic conditions we've discussed, and some that we haven't. But eventually, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and it's not medication. Okay, it ain't Mounjaro, it ain't Ozempic. That's not the answer. That's not the answer. It's it's meat, it's eggs, it's butter, um, it's beef, it's lamb, it's pork,
Yeah.
uh,
The answer is real food.
real food,
Mm.
real food. So yeah, any people can reach out to me anytime, and I'll continue to watch your show. I love what you do, Dave, and I thank you for what you do, because and I'll just so the spiritual parallels for what I've gone through, and just diet in general. Okay, the Bible clearly teaches that the road is narrow, the road to heaven is narrow, only a few find it. And I see carnivores the same way. It's unfortunate because people, it's in front of them and they can do it and they can find that narrow road of great health and feeling good all the time. And, but few are going to find it. Few are going to find it. It's a narrow road. But that doesn't mean that we still shouldn't try to encourage people to at least give it a shot. At
Mm.
least give it a shot.
Yeah.
What have you got to lose?
Yeah. Well, Kip, thank you so much for coming back on and sharing your story and letting us know how things are going. I really appreciate your time.
Well, I was very excited to hear from you, Dave, and I very much enjoyed this, and I'm grateful for another opportunity, and I wish you well. I wish you the very best, and I'll continue to watch your work.